Good evening, this is Mr. Wintermelon. So we have come to the last subchapter on the topic of nutrition in human, which will be the first video on nutrition in human, because we are going to talk about function of liver, which is kind of not within nutrition in human, but nevertheless, the syllabus cannot find any other place to slot in liver, and because liver is such an important organ, which you will see later on, because of its numerous role, so your syllabus have to slot it somewhere, and they decided to slot it down here. Now, let us take a look at what the syllabus requires you to know. First, it is carbohydrate metabolism, which we will go into further detail in another chapter later down the road. But we will quickly go through this as it is inside your textbook for this chapter. Liver is also involved in something that you have learned, which is fat digestion, breaking down of red blood cell, the animation of amino acid into urea, and lastly, breaking down of alcohol. So this is the 5 functions of liver you have to know for your O-level syllabus. How do I normally go about remembering this is, I remember its function to do with carbohydrate, fats, as well as protein and alcohol. You might ask, so there's only 4. Later on, you will learn that breaking down of red blood cell is related to fat digestion. And the last part will be the effect of excessive consumption of alcohol. So Thambi and Thankachit, please pay additional attention to this part. We will first start by looking at the overall view of the function of liver, which is regulating of blood glucose level or carbohydrate metabolism. Liver is also involved in iron storage as well as bowel production. These two is related to the breaking down of red blood cell, the animation of amino acid, as well as detoxification of alcohol. So let us start with the function of liver in regulating blood glucose concentration. As I have mentioned, the part on blood glucose concentration will be further discussed in a later chapter. So I will just be snappy on this. You just have to copy down the things in red. At any given time, there will be glucose floating around inside our blood, minding their own business. However, their level can actually decrease. Let's say because we go on an exercise trip. Then when this happens, what our liver will do is they will break down glycogen into glucose. So after this glycogen is broken down into glucose, the glucose will be released into our blood and our blood glucose level will rise. The opposite can happen. So let's say after a meal, our blood glucose level rises. This will in turn cause the liver to convert glucose into glycogen. So it's sort of the reverse. When we need more glucose, liver will break down glycogen into glucose. And when we have too much glucose floating around in our blood, our liver will convert the glucose into glycogen. Then this will cause the blood glucose level to return to normal. So copy this down. The important thing to take note is liver converts glycogen into glucose when there is a shortage of glucose, and the opposite, which is liver converts glucose into glycogen when we have too much glucose floating around in our blood. Our liver will convert the glucose into glycogen. Next, let us take a look at how the liver is involved in the breaking down of red blood cell. So what we have right here is a worn out red blood cell. The red blood cell will be sent into the spleen, which is responsible for the breaking down of red blood cell. Now, there are material inside the red blood cell which enable it to transport or carry a lot of oxygen and transporting them. The protein responsible for transporting oxygen is actually called hemoglobin. In between the hemoglobin molecules, there's actually an ion. So what our body will do is, after the red blood cell is broken down in the spleen, the hemoglobin will be released and transported to the liver. And what the liver will do is, it will store the iron from the hemoglobin, and the remaining part will become bile. And bile is responsible for the emulsification of fats, which is turning them into tiny fat droplets and speeding up the rate of digestion. So after the fat metabolism, we will take a look at protein metabolism. First is something that is just for your info. Liver is the site for blood clotting protein to be synthesized. For example, fibrinogen. If you ask me, I haven't really seen this before because the syllabus outline only mentioned about deamination, which is this. So copy this down. Deamination is the process which the amino group are removed from amino acid and being converted into urea. So amino acid only have one amino group, which is attached to the nitrogen. So what will happen is, it will be converted into ammonia, which is toxic, but our body is not having any of this. So ammonia will be converted into urea, and urea will be filtered out in our kidney and it will come out through our PP. Then you might be asking, what happened to the remaining of the amino acid? So the remaining amino acid, what will happen is, they will get converted into glucose and be stored as glycogen inside our liver or muscle. So just take note, the reaction on the left is deamination, and the process on the right is not deamination, because deamination is converting amino acid into urea. The reaction on the right is just to convert the remaining part of the amino acid into something useful, which is glucose, that will be converted into glycogen. For detoxification, all you have to know is liver is the site of detoxification, which breaks down alcohol. There are also many toxic substances which the liver breaks down, but the main thing you have to know here is alcohol. But if you want to know further, here is some trivia. So ethanol, or the alcohol, is being broken down by some enzyme found in the liver into pyruvate. And pyruvate is the substance which the glucose breaks down into, and it is used for respiration. There are some people that does not have so much of this enzyme, therefore you can see that their face become red after just a bit of alcohol. And you will see this kind of red flushes normally in Asian. There are also some creatures that totally cannot break down alcohol, such as our best friend, dog. Therefore, if you have any dog at home, please do not feed alcohol or chocolate to them, because they do not have the enzyme to detoxify them. And lastly, you have to understand the effect that happens when you drink too much alcohol. So there's a few effects. The long-term effect is increase the risk of gastric ulcer as well as cirrhosis of liver. That means the liver is getting scarred, which is like when you fall down, you get injured, sooner or later you will see this hard scar tissue. So the scarring of liver is known as cirrhosis. Then there are also short-term effects, which includes reduce of cell control as well as increase of reaction time. The increase of reaction time is due to blurred vision as well as poor muscle coordination. Then there will also be social implications, such as you neglect your work as well as committing crime because you might not be fully aware of what you are doing. And honestly, if you ask me, I would try to avoid the social implication of excessive alcohol consumption. So we have come to the end of this chapter, which is nutrition in human. So copy what you have to copy, and Hopefully you will enjoy the next chapter as well, which is transport in human.